US Africa 2024 Business Summit. Federal government delegation reels out investment opportunities in Nigeria.
We are growing. There was a presidential rice initiative that saw to the expansion of rice production.
Senate proposes legal framework to protect domestic workers.
The risk to your family, it's a risk to your children, and we've had a lot of incidents of this nature where sometimes you go to work, you come back and the house is empty.
And House of Representatives to investigate escape of Binance executive from custody.
The escape of the Binance executive from the office of the National Security Advisor using a smuggled passport is, to say the least, most disappointing.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss Constitution Amendment.
All right, and as Nigeria continues its journey towards a perfect union, the need for a comprehensive amendment of the previously amended 1999 Constitution has become increasingly urgent.
Indeed, Claire, Nigeria's journey towards an acceptable constitution began at independence in 1960. Apart from this particular constitution, there were three others: the 1963, 1979, and the 1999 Constitution, which is currently in use and being amended.
Absolutely, and as we evolve as a country and seek to, of course, amend our laws for good governance, so far we have about 5 constitutional alterations. Of course, this, since 1999. Yes, I think so. Yes, since 1999.
Sixth amendment.
Since the tenure of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, Musa Yar'Adua, and of course the immediate past President Muhammadu Buhari, and incumbent.
And that tells you it's work in progress. We are not going to, even in this 6th alteration, we are not going to solve all the problems of Nigeria.
Indeed. All right, so of course we'll be looking at several bills that have been passed, but of course did not get the presidential assent during the 5th Constitution alterations, which of course seem to have brought us back to square one, if I may. And they will include powers to the National Assembly, to summon the president and state assemblies to summon state governors. We also have requirements of government to direct policies and towards ensuring the right to food and food security. And of course, the National Assembly has also reiterated its willingness to accommodate more proposals to enhance the Constitution and, of course, strengthen our democracy. So,
and you do know that Section 9 of the 1999 Constitution stipulates that 2/3 majority in both the Senate and the House of Representatives are required for an amendment of the Constitution to pass.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Victor. And, many Nigerians are worried that the preamble to the 1999 Constitution will only make meaning when all realistic concerns, and I'm just reading it out, when all realistic concerns are adequately captured in the current review. So what are the key issues and controversies and expectations surrounding this very crucial process? And we will be speaking, of course, Victor and I will be having a discussion with experts in this area, policymakers, and they'll be speaking to some of the issues that will be raised and, to see what will be possible in this, as Victor said, 6th alteration.
Well, we'll see how that goes. I'm sure the experts that we have lined up on the program this morning will do justice. What are the needs of Nigerians? What has been done? Where are we and where do we want to be?
Okay.
That will make up what we'll be discussing on Good Morning Nigeria. So we'd like to welcome you to this Thursday edition of the program. Thank you for joining us. I am Victor Azu.
And I'm Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. Once again, if you've just joined us, you're welcome to the program, and it's live on the network service of the NTA. So soon we will be joining our colleague Olajide Bello for highlights of the morning news, and much later, Chukwudi Okunigbaja will be here to review the newspapers for us. For now, Jide, good morning.
Good morning, Claire. Good morning, Victor. Good morning, Nigerian. Here are the highlights of the morning news. The U.S.-Africa Business Summit in Dallas, Texas is focusing on connecting business interests between the United States of America and the African continent. The Nigerian delegation, led by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tuga, is engaging the United States government on trade and investment in infrastructure.
Which still remains the mainstay of the majority of Nigerians, because they rely on rain-fed subsistence agriculture. So that is why this administration is building on the achievements of the previous administration that did quite a lot of work on growing what we eat. So rice has become, we became a bit bourgeois, and we turned to rice. So we are growing. There was a presidential rice initiative that saw to the expansion of rice production.
The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has organized a 3-day strategic partnership engagement between the ECOWAS Commission and its training centers of excellence as proactive means of tackling terrorism and insecurity in the sub-region, facilitated by the development partners. The meeting at the National Defense College, Abuja, featured a high-level interaction and capacity building, policy development and action-oriented research among member states.
It is pertinent to state that West Africa is still the only region within the continent where training centers of excellence have been assigned specific mandates to conduct training at tactical, operational, and strategic levels.
We are working very closely with the African Union on this leg of the issue to make sure that we inject human rights into whatever we do. When you look at the current state of terrorism, how do we need to reposition that plan of action in order to more effectively counter, this threat that is becoming existential.
Domestic workers need to be protected from abuse and exploitation. The employers too need protection from the criminally minded amongst them. These are among reasons that prompted the Senate to come up with a legislation that would aid registration and documentation of domestic workers in line with labor laws.
It's a risk to your family, it's a risk to your children, and we've had a lot of incidents of this nature, where sometimes you go to work, you come back and the house is empty. And we've also had few incidents where even the employers have been killed by domestic servants, and they sit back inside there and sell the television, sell things and all that.
And from the Green Chambers, the House of Representatives has expressed displeasure over the security breach that led to the escape of Nadim Anjarwalla, one of the detained executives of cryptocurrency company Binance, from custody in Abuja. To this end, the House has resolved to investigate the circumstances surrounding Nadim's escape from custody, which lawmakers described as scandalous.
Further worried that the escape of the Binance executive from the office of the National Security Advisor using a smuggled passport is, to say the least, most disappointing, embarrassing, and disturbing, as it portrays the porosity of the security architecture of the country to the world.
This motion is referred to the Committees on Financial Crimes, National Security and Intelligence, Interior, and Police.
Away from the National Assembly, Minister of Interior Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo says federal government is working towards provision of conducive environment for inmates by building modern correctional centers with facilities that will add value to their lives. The minister said this at a meeting with the Senate Committee on Interior over the recent Suleja prison collapse.
We also discussed about solutions in terms of making sure that this doesn't happen again. And I can tell you the federal government is in control of this. Everything is under control. And President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is actually putting in everything through the Ministry of Interior and the Nigerian Correctional Service to make sure that there's no reoccurrence and we have a correctional center. We have a correctional center that is safe for all inmates.
And that's the news. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Claire and Victor after this break.
Welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA, and it's time for the newspaper review in just a moment.
Right, the papers are here and we are set. So is Chooks the boy who is ready for the review. Good morning, Chukwudi Okolubaja.
You mentioned the presence of the papers before my own presence.
Because that's why we are
Papers
here
are
at this
important
time.
past me. Anyway, I'm here. Whatever your wishes are.
Because, you know why? You know why?
That is the substance.
You know why, Chukwudi? Not that the papers are important more than you, but the content of the papers.
Actually, without the papers, I'm non-existent.
The content of
That's the truth.
And you know, especially when it has to do with inflation, money.
Yes.
You get what I mean, Chukwudi. Thank you, and welcome. So let's quickly begin with the Guardian newspaper, and it has a number of stories, but let me begin with the lead story. Inflation, major determinant of living wage negotiation, says NLC. It's on page 6. And there's also a story there, just before the nameplate. Lagos State Government approves 40% rebate on duties, payment, and planning permit. The details of that story you can find on page 5. Trade unions kick demand reversal of cyber security levy. And details of that again on page 6. Gunmen abduct 13 as kidnapping returns to the FCT. We had this story yesterday on one of the papers. I think that was Leadership newspaper. Now, reps probe Binance executives escape as FG dismisses bribery claim. On page 3, you can find details of that story. And to River State now, the crisis deepens as pro-Fubara lawmakers elect new speaker. Again, you can read up that story on page 2. And there's also a story on beyond judiciary, public sector deserves equitable salary structure. And okay, that's an editorial now. But that's the outlook of the Guardian's newspaper's front page. And Victor has just about 2 stories. Victor.
All right, some similar stories here and there, but the Nation this morning leads with Fubara lawmakers feud throws Rivers into turmoil. 3 pro-governor lawmakers elect speaker. Council chiefs, government disagree over withheld allocation. And then above the nameplate, EFCC to arraign Sirika, daughter, son-in-law, for 4.135 billion naira fraud. That story is on page 4. Then troops pull out of Okwama community. Resist Binance. Okay. Troops pull out of Okwama community is a story on its own. That's on page 4. Another on page 4 is resist Binance's blackmail. U.S. mayor urges federal government. That is also on page 4. And then at the bottom of the front page of the Nation, we have a graphic display of transactions exempted from cybersecurity levy. And the details, it's salary payments, etc. For details, you get them on the Nation. Okay, Daily Trust is next. And it leads, well, by the side, not quite leading. Road crashes killed 295, injured 315 in 3 months. You can find that story on page 4. And then Speaker overrules member calling for suspension of cybersecurity levy. That's the same cybersecurity levy whose the same diagram read on the page, the front page of The Nation, also appears on the front page of the Daily Trust. And then PDP kicks as plots to impeach Fubara thickens. You can find that story on page 11. I think we can leave it at that. Chooks the boy.
Yeah. Victor, I like that bit on a U.S. mayor asking the federal government to resist Binance's blackmail. They are peddling, people ask for bribe and all that. Why didn't you go ahead and give the bribe, have your evidence so that you can have something to put on the ground in terms of bringing such people to book? So it's cheap. It's a cheap way of trying to, get out of the hook, I think that we should go ahead and do what we should do about it.
That's a program I love to watch on TV, and I do gain quite a lot of legal processes. In a court of law, they'll say, do you have evidence of the bribery offer?
You have to prove it beyond reasonable doubt.
Precisely, you have to prove it. But again, apart from that, and I'm glad you're taking up the story of this first to review. I'm just concerned how possible it was for this executive to escape from the office of the NSA using a smuggled passport. 2 offenses. You're using a smuggled passport and you're escaping from the NSA's custody. NSA, that shows the vulnerability of our security architecture.
Yes.
And it's worrisome.
Is it the vulnerability or collusion?
It suggests
that
whatever contributed to
it didn't become invisible.
Labels the porousness of whatever we think we have together, we have put together in terms of security. That's it. Claire has a very important point. We don't care the factors that contributed. Yes. The point is that it happened. It shouldn't have happened. You understand, Victor? Now, there's this one on inflation being a major determinant in fixing a new minimum wage. That's coming from the NLC, of course. And then it sounds, correct, given the realities of the moment. But then you pray that at a point inflation could be fought. Inflation does not stay static all the time. What is going to matter is how realistic labor and government are in determining the minimum wage. Because there's actually an amount to give to workers if you do not put in place other instruments for managing the economy properly. That money becomes useless.
To be eroded.
You understand?
Inflation
could actually get up to 3 times what it is now. So we have a lot of work to do. It's not an easy task. If anyone thinks it's going to be easy, they're just having themselves, a joke.
But we also need to understand the context in which the NLC, is coming.
No, we're not debating the context. We're just advising into the future.
Yes, I'm saying, because if you say inflation, major determinant of living wage negotiations is NLC, what does it mean? What does it mean for the negotiation? What in terms of the process of the negotiation? Does it mean is NLC trying to soft pedal, or is it trying to understand the current realities?
No, it's not saying.
I don't come here to create mischief, but you see, I found it very interesting, the wonderful gesture of Mr. President on May 1. The man is already ahead of NLC. He has goodwill already on his side. He gave us money even when we have not negotiated it. You see, some people know how to think. So NLC has to be careful. Do you understand me? You see, I'm not going short, I'm not get sense.
No, but Chukwudi, we've been saying this all the time. And when I do, especially when I'm on set with Victor, he has his own, argument as well. And I'm like, yes, and I'm saying that, you see, yes, we do deserve, the living wage. We do, workers, Nigerian workers do deserve it.
Absolutely.
But we must also, bench it against the current realities and the pulse of government. Most importantly, state government's ability
and the local governments. Yes.
At the
that
moment,
would be reasonable. That would be reasonable.
Definitely,
and plausible.
any state, okay, maybe the oil-rich states. Other states, if they insist that what the federal government gives to people eventually is what they are going to give, I'm going to tell them, you're starting an assignment you're not going to complete.
But
you have to face
moment,
those realities. And people have to understand why governors and local government chairmen would argue in that direction.
But funny enough, the good news on the inside page of The Guardian, the Nasarawa State Governor has come out, well, according to this paper, to say that governors are not against new minimum wage. So, he dismissed insinuations that the state helmsmen are not cooperating with the federal government on the issue. The clarification may not be unconnected, okay, and the fears were heightened and all that. So he's saying that, look, his colleagues are not against...
But it would be nonsensical for any governor to even think that his people don't, we don't have a female governor yet, so his people don't deserve a minimum wage. Because the realities of the moment would make such an argument,
but
easily
more importantly,
easily dismissible.
It deserves a sense of urgency, because at the moment, what can the current emolument, if you like, call it? What can it afford a worker? I remember that good old cartoon where you have a small boy tagged worker's salary, and then you have the others. Food, housing, transport, and all of them, all grown up. But the worker's salary remains a boy.
It's dwarfed.
And so everything rises. You have the same salary, everything rises.
Yes.
And you have to afford it somehow. How?
Yeah.
So it demands a sense of urgency.
I totally agree with you.
Over the line.
It was one
the talk is becoming,
one musician in Old Bendel State
too long.
Who said earlier the better. So I know that your pocket deserves a few more notes. So does Claire's pocket as well. Everyone's pocket.
I think we deserve more notes in our pockets, because few men like you, Chukwudi, go to the market to know
yes.
what it takes.
By the way,
you didn't mention me.
By the way,
you didn't mention me.
I don't know about.
You didn't mention me.
Now that you've mentioned my domestic chores these days, this is a time to buy onions, please. They're very fresh now.
Unfortunately,
yes, a time.
How many can I buy?
Well, you've just given us a story idea. So I'm sure our business desk is taking notes, probably to do a market survey to see if maybe you are not judging from what you get from your backyard.
Fresh now.
You are not judging.
Very fresh now.
Have you started Every Home a Garden?
What's that?
Okay, you don't know about it. Don't worry. You don't know about
it will be out of the fewer we are, the better. The fewer we are, the better.
It's a gardening competition, introduced by a Renewed Hope initiative of the First Lady.
Okay.
But it's strictly for women, to cultivate and encourage them, to grow. Food in their backyard.
I hope she's taking it essentially to the hinterland,
and it comes
and not giving it to metropolitan, well-dressed ladies who may not be interested.
I am not the first lady's essay, but because I'm a woman and I know about this competition, and here this is the most important aspect of it. A winner goes home with 20 million.
That's the one that would attract our attention. A winner goes home with
20 million naira. But let's look at the trade unions kick demand reversal of cyber security levy. Reversal. A number of experts have really commended the quality of the policy. But we talked about this yesterday.
That it is actually in our law.
In our law, yes.
An irrelevant act has it there. So nobody is springing anything on anybody. We have agreed on that.
Yes, so I think
what we were arguing yesterday was why pass this to us? The banks that are handling humongous profits before tax and after tax, can they bear this on our behalf? But one thing is, government is looking for areas of possible revenue in a situation of dire straits, economic dire straits. That's actually, it's not going to banks.
Then the question will be, is it all for the money? Because the other day, the video went viral of a popular, actor, Sean George. I mean, she was practically, in tears over the hacking of her account and the whole money in her account, was scammed, was stolen. And throughout last week, a number of people also complained about, such. So how can we connect this levy to resolving such issues? Because it's an online transaction.
Oh, well.
So is there a nexus?
The expectation is that if you're asking people to pay for cybersecurity, we expect you to beef up cybersecurity for us. I was saying yesterday, for instance, if after I do all this and my account gets hacked into, who am I going to sue?
Well, if we say,
there are processes.
For instance,
there are processes.
If you are talking about cybersecurity and they say 273 billion naira lost to cybercrime in 2002, this money is way more than the money you want to prevent from being stolen.
Chukwudi, and the issue is
let's wish you a good day.
There are processes to going about that,
okay.
Yes, but it's just that it's just the bottlenecks and the delays in getting it done. That's the problem. Chooks, the boy.
Yes, quickly, Claire, please. The headline that says kidnapping returns to FCT, please, that's not the best way to say it.
I said that yesterday.
It has read its head again, but let's not say return. Let's wish ourselves well.
Indeed, I agree with you.
So be positive-minded.
Exactly.
Chukwudi, we have to say bye-bye.
We wish you well today.
Yes.
Go break a leg.
English. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
All right, you're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And to begin our conversation on the constitutional amendment, let's take this background report from correspondent Abdul Salam Jibril.
In recent times, the clamor for the promotion of good governance and welfare of Nigerians on the principles of freedom, equality, and justice has given rise to the need for a comprehensive review of the 1999 Constitution. In February this year, the Senate heeded this call, announcing the need to once again touch some aspects of the Constitution to bring them in line with current realities. To achieve this aim, the Red Chamber set up a 45-member committee to review and amend the Constitution. The Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, explained that the 1999 Constitution needs a review because it contains many issues that need to be put right. Following in tow, the Green Chamber, that is the House of Assembly, constituted a committee to look into various proposals and agitations for the alterations and amendment of the 1999 Constitution, headed by the Deputy Speaker, Benjamin Kalu, with some lawmakers as members. For many Nigerians home and abroad, the news was welcomed with mixed feelings. While many applauded the move of an amendment, others maintained that the 1999 Constitution needs to be replaced in its entirety. Recall that over the years, the Nigerian Constitution, since 1960, has been subjected to a series of amendments. Experts note that these amendments were necessary to cure various anomalies in the Constitution discovered over time, and anomalies that were caused by adopting a constitution that did not resonate with the pluralist state of the ethnicities in Nigeria. Some Nigerians insist that the 1999 constitution does not contain a few provisions which need to be put right. Areas that have been pointed out for amendment over the years includes the country's security architecture, public revenue, fiscal federation and revenue allocation, judicial and electoral reforms, traditional institutions, gender-related issues, state creation, state access to mining, among others. How soon should Nigerians expect an amended 1999 constitution, and will it meet their expectations? This and more will form the crux of discussions as guests speak to the ongoing constitutional review shortly.
All right, that was Abdul Salam Jibril giving us a background to our conversation. And just a reminder again, it's constitutional amendment. And we have our guests right here in the studio. Quickly, introductions. Professor Joy Ngozi Ezilo is a senior advocate of Nigeria, Emeritus Dean of Law, University of Nigeria in Nsukka, former Commissioner for Women Affairs and Social Development in Enugu State. She's also founder of Women's Aid Collective and is currently United Nations expert on international fact-finding mission to Sudan. And she's right here with us live in the studio. We'd like to welcome you, Professor Joy Ezilo. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you, and good morning, Nigerians.
It's good to have you live in the studio. I can't remember when we
did have you.
All right. We also have Victor. I think you have the.
Okay. We also have Honorable Peter Ibrahim Gendeng, a former member representing Barkin Ladi, Riyom, Federal Constituency of Plateau State. It's also a pleasure to welcome you.
Good morning, viewers.
Nigeria. Claire.
Yes. All right. Let's start with. Let me start with the Honorable, the former member representing Barkin Ladi, Riyom Federal Constituency. Since the return to democracy in 1999, we've had a number of constitutional amendments, and I'd like us to understand, what the amendment series, the impact of the amendment series on our democratic process. And I'm wondering, because we've had 5 constitutional amendments, or 5th alteration, if you may, and we're about to have the 6th one. So what does the frequency of these amendments, how does it impact on the quality of our laws and our democratic process?
Good morning, Nigerians. I'm still Peter Ibrahim Gendeng, the former member representing Barkin-Ladi Federal Constituency from Plateau State. The effect of amendments all these years have helped a lot in improving the democratic system of the governance, but with a lot of challenges, especially the last one. You could remember the inconsistencies of judgment we had in the last 2020 election, which have affected most of the members and even electorates negatively. So the coming amendment will address a lot of issues, burning issues that have affected people negatively. I think that will help a lot if it comes.
But then how many? Okay, just before I'll have a follow-up for you, but let's also welcome here in the studio Honorable Benny La, former member of the House of Representatives who represented Langtang North and South Federal Constituency of Plateau State. It's a pleasure to have you in the studio.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to ask, you said it will address a lot of issues in the country, and I wonder how much of it, because there are itemized, the issues itemized may not do so much as you sound it.
Well, you could remember what happened last year, and towards the end middle of this year, at the Court of Appeal, where judgments were inconsistent. In the same case, like that of Plateau, a pre-election matter was nullified based on reasons we don't know. On the same Court of Appeal again, issue of Ebonyi State and Benue, so on a pre-election matter, they got their judgment. So those are the issues that need to be addressed. Even our governor from Plateau lost at the Court of Appeal because of a pre-election matter. Going to Supreme Court, he got his judgment. And you find out that if our cases went beyond the Court of Appeal, would have gotten our judgment and would have been in office now. So what happened to us? Because based on the judgment of the Supreme Court, it clearly stated that the Appeal Court, even the High Court in Jos, have no jurisdiction to entertain those cases. So in that miscarriage of judgment, what happened to those that have lost at the appeal court?
Well, in any case, I'm not sure that that's all what we'll be going into this morning. But let me ask Professor Ezilo, who is the constitutional lawyer here. Do you think that a constitutional amendment can take care of issues concerning the involvement of the courts? Because when you disagree with INEC, for instance, the only way to go is to the court.
Exactly. That's why we have separation of powers, and we have three arms of government. The legislature, they make the law, and then the executive implement, and then, of course, the judiciary interprets the law. So if there is a dispute, and for peaceful coexistence, you have to take it to court and not the laws into your hands. But we've seen, even for the court, that the backlog of cases is also caused by huge number of election petition matters or election or party, call it even political party affairs. They've taken a big chunk of judicial time. But you can't say people should do away with the, going to court. Mm-hmm. But it's just a call for continual, to improve, continuous improvement on the credibility of elections in Nigeria. And again, to begin to set these timelines, such as we have seen with regard to previous amendments of the Constitution, like in the 5th alteration, to have a timeline for filing of election petition and ending within 1 day. So those are important. But then it just takes care of a certain category of cases. But the overall is to address the root causes. I've been to countries like studied electoral systems in other countries of similarly running federal system. Take India, for example. If you look at election petition, they are the world's largest democracy with nearly 1 billion people voting in election. And then the petition is 0.1% in terms of litigation. It doesn't happen because they have a system where you vote, electronic voting machine. I've seen that demonstrated. I've been to the Electoral Commission of India, and then they verify, and everything is clear to people. In fact, even when they distribute materials, there is no interest. You see the election drag for 1 month. People can drop things by camel to the hinterland. Nobody have that. There is no that culture of manipulation, of trying to hijack, of trying to alter. So it is about attitude. The do or die politics we are playing, the political terrain, the fact that it has also become the easiest access to means of production and also to wealth. So we have to look at that. But then a constitutional amendment is beyond that. But we have to tackle the root causes. And I'm worried as a lawyer, as a senior advocate, about delays, even in the appellate court, because these cases have to drag, like the Right Honorable described, from High Court, up to the Supreme Court. And by the time, some of them get, especially pre-election matters, some are already overtaken by events, So it's really a need for, there have to be a decisive action. And I think going forward, we might also have a permanent court for taking electoral matters, Professor, since that is already
we're already delving into the crux of our conversation. I wanted to lay a foundation so that we can understand why these amendments are necessary. I wanted to connect amendments and the quality of our democracy. And I'm glad, Benila, you're able to join us for this conversation. So we've been able to establish, Prof. and Honorable Peter, have been able to establish, yes, amendments can confer some form of consistency and stability, and all that. But again, if you consider the fact that the process itself is a very rigid, process, and takes time, especially with our kind of constitution. The frequency of it since 1999, what has it done to our democracy and public confidence in our laws?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I just want to go over, thank you for having me once more, and good morning, everybody. I want to, first of all, go back to the definition of a constitution. What is a constitution? A constitution is a document in some countries, such as ours, is written that contains a set of principles that defines governance or defines, sets of principles that defines how countries are governed. Now, in Nigeria, we have a written constitution, and the constitution in section 9 provides that there can be an amendment of that constitution, meaning if those set of principles or the laws governing the land, because it's the grand norm of the land, that's the supreme law of the land, and every other law derives its power from the constitution. So if that set of principles or the law document isn't working, then Nigerians, the nation can go back and amend it. And so we're in, section 9 gives the responsibility to the National Assembly, there's Senate and the House of Reps, 2/3 of which must get any amendment passed, any alteration, before it goes to the State Houses of Assembly. Now, having said that, it's important to note that this constitution was handed down by the military, so Nigerians don't feel a form of ownership. And that is why I've been privileged to be in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and part a little bit of the 10th Assembly until we're unceremoniously removed. Nigerians have, over the years, through the National Assembly, actually effected very, very good proposed amendments. We've worked on bills. We have, the issue of local government autonomy, the issue of indigenship and citizenship, the rights of women, the rights of women, for instance, who have foreign husbands, women desire, and we have proposed bills that women get 35% or even more, but all of these haven't come up. And a lot of times you find that the National Assembly, sometimes they do not vote for issues that are burning issues. For instance, the issue of women. That has been in the front burner, and we know that Nigeria has the lowest rate of women probably in Africa and part of the lowest in the world. 97% of the National Assembly is made up of men. We have 469 seats, and women are only 20. Before I was removed, unceremoniously, were 21. So I was affected. I was the only woman affected and removed through a court process that was invalid in the first place. So it's the issue of women needs to be addressed in this constitution. The issue of security, state policing, and I'm glad it seems, that it seems that both the National Assembly and the executive will do this. Now, the National Assembly has to be in synergy with the executive, because if the National Assembly proposes and even passes these amendments and the executive doesn't sign it, like what happened during the Buhari era, most of the bills were not signed, then it becomes a wasted effort. And so we're hoping that as Nigerians, through their legislators, Nigerians should participate in this process, because this is the chance to change even the part of the Constitution that talks about elections. Should appeal stop at the Court of Appeal? I don't think so, because the Court of Appeal has proven to fail Nigerians many times over and over. And Nigerians, the right to vote and be voted for is a key fundamental right of every Nigerian. We should not be compromised. And we've taken our time through various bodies and institutions and laws to ensure that right is protected.
Why do you think, sorry to interject, because you were in the last assembly. Why do you think, as you said right now, that the legislators rarely amend issues that affect, or that concerns the people, especially women? For instance, some of the amendments, have, altered the text of laws that affect maybe election matters, maybe the judiciary to some extent, and even the judiciary, it's not the processes that affect the common man. Maybe there's some, provisional, seats and all that. Even the one that affects the young Nigerians, the not too young to run bill, has not so far been effective. I don't know, Professor Ezilo may also want to, speak on that.
Well, the National Assembly has been coming up with bills, but I'm saying they're not normally, the presidency in the past did not assent to it. It's only the women's bill I know that the National Assembly didn't pass, but they have been coming up. That's what I said. They've been spending a lot of time working on bills, but the presidency in the past did not assent to these bills, and so it made the exercise ineffective, let me say, to a large extent. Not all. Some bills, a few, were passed, but not much. So I just want to say that I think if we want to transform our society and change this country, we must go back to the roots, which is what she said. And what is this root? The three arms of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, must perform their roles because they all take an oath. They swear to the Constitution of Nigeria to protect the rights of every Nigerian. And if you violate that right, there should be sanctions. And that takes me back to even what happened in Plateau. There's no sanctions for violating the rule of law. So judges who err, there's really not much sanctions for them provided in the NGC. So we need to go back to a situation where even in this constitutional process, as legislators take their time painstakingly to ensure that Nigerians address these issues, issues of devolution of powers. Most states are asking that more powers, Nigerians are asking that more powers be transferred to the states and not remain at the federal government because, for instance, and then issues of resource control as well. The federal governments get about 52% of the consolidated revenue fund, and the states only get about 26%, and the local government. And then we need the full independence of the local government. And, we need a lot to make this country run. But like I always say in Nigeria, you may have the laws, but sometimes it's the mindset. Nigerians sometimes do not.
I'm just wondering, you see, sometimes, isn't it the case that sometimes the demands in terms of constitution amendment may be unrealistic, and then in some other cases, the rigidity of our amendment process make them very, very difficult. For instance, the women's bill, the bill concerning women and all of those, I had privilege of engaging with a few members. They will tell you, look, am I going to vacate my seat for a woman to take it over? That's one concern. And then if you say, okay, let's make them extra slots, which was what was proposed.
Yes, special seats.
At a time when we say, well, cost of governance is high, is it realistic to, further bloat the legislature? I'm just asking. I'm asking the question that Nigerians will usually ask.
I think it's lack of understanding, and it's most unfortunate that those gender-related or specific bills were rejected. And there were about 5 of them, but 3 really speak directly to women issues in terms of affirmative action, in terms of political appointment as ministers, commissioners, which was even a pathway. When you look at even the percentage was 10%. And then they talk about 35% in terms of party executive, which I don't even think should find its way in the Constitution, wasn't an issue. And then the main one, with additional seats in Parliament, is the main one, but was largely misunderstood because first it wasn't even to take effect in 2024, because I was also involved in the process as a consultant to National Assembly, House of Reps. It wasn't to take effect in 2023 election. It was to take effect in 2027 election, and it's about inclusion. So inclusion will always cost money. And if you want to because democracy, women have a right to participate in the government of their country. So also youth and other people with disability. Once you're a Nigerian citizen, law-abiding, not in conflict with the law or convicted, you have a right to vote or be voted for. And if you find that consistently a particular gender has been so marginalized, look at what we have. We've regressed without having a word. At National Assembly now, is 3% of Senate seats occupied by women. Mere 3%. Decimal.
I'm sorry, but the Constitution doesn't bar women from contesting.
No. You have to look at...
It's democracy.
You have to look at systemic gender discrimination against women, especially in the political sphere. Where the power is, women are not. And we know why. So if you look at both sociocultural factors, if you look at also the money, why also women fail in their political enterprise or is also they don't have the money, the funding, the means of production, access to that means of production that will enable you to compete. It's not there. But let me tell you, of the strongest one is issue of culture, because the perception or the conceptualized dichotomy of public and private spheres. You know, you remember the other room. Huh? Women belong to the other room, and women belong in domestic sphere, and women shouldn't be seen in public. All of this really affects mindset of people when you think of who is to be a leader, who should be voted for. So we have 3% in Senate, 4% in House of Reps. Out of 990 state houses of assembly seats, we have only 48 women. And even in some states, over 12 states have no woman in the state house of assembly. So how can women hold themselves bound by laws made by such bodies? I've been part of making of constitutions of other countries, especially emerging states and democracies like Nigeria. I was part of Rwanda constitution, even including the provision that transformed to it becoming the most gender-sensitive parliament. In 2001, 2000, I spent a lot of time in Rwanda with the constitution drafting committee. I've been involved also with National Assembly here for more than 12 years, since 2010 or so, in the constitution process. And it's tiring to see that what ordinarily should pass, if you talk about indigenship, and you see how this is playing out, and undermining the unity of this country. Every Nigerian has a right to reside in any part of Nigeria, so long as, and that's a constitutional provision. And women, the indigeneity affect them in a particular way, even though it affects other Nigerians. Once you're living and working outside your state, we know how it affects. So looking at all of this, women are saying, for them, their right to participate in the government of their country, there is no budget too high to pay for that. And that additional seat will not, we've done the economics of it. Every law costs money. You see, even the one we made on cyber security, and they are thinking of where do we get the funding, and you have that provision. Every piece of legislation costs money to implement. And you have to weigh the advantages, and that inclusion, feeling of being part of the system in Nigeria, and making people feel happy. That unmet justice need can also fuel all kinds of conflict we see.
Professor Zilo, thank you. The issues, you've all raised, and just to clarify that this program is not gender biased. It's so let's not go all about gender. We're just looking at the Constitution amendment, and then we'll come and look at some of the issues up for amendment in the 6th alteration. But again, the issues that Honorable Benila and Prof have raised, touch on the effectiveness of the amendment. And that's why I'm also asking, previous amendments, how effective have they been in addressing the issues for which they were amended? And I gave an example. Let's take the Not Too Young to Run bill, for instance. Let's also take the amendments on the electoral process, for instance. I mean, people still find ways to circumvent these laws. Honorable Peter.
Let me briefly add to what she said about gender. In as much as you talk about culture, you've forgotten about religion. Exactly. It plays a very key role in affecting women in politics. So to address the issue of amendment, I think effectiveness of amendment, I think we need to start with ourselves. Most of the times it happens that people read, you will sit down, maybe the National Assembly will sit down and amend laws based on the necessity of the amendment. The judges too will read differently, they will interpret it differently to suit their own thinking. Looking at what happened in the Court of Appeal, or starting from even the tribunal in our state, 2 sets of tribunals came. One tribunal, but the 2 different sets, batch A and B. Anybody that was under that the batch A tribunal, they lost their cases. On the same issue, those are the batch B won their cases. Coming to Court of Appeal, the same Court of Appeal dealt with all the cases as post-election matters. But all these cases were pre-election matters. So reading meanings or understanding the amendment properly and addressing it properly will help in the effectiveness of the amendment. But if we don't do that, and if judges and any other person that interpret the law did not do what they're supposed to do, what happened to him? They are allowed to go scot-free. So for it to be effective, people must be punished in erring what is supposed to be right. Because a lot of people have suffered unjustly based on this judgment, their judgment. So I am saying here that we must allow the system to work properly. Go to Niger here. You cannot drive and pass, police will not stop you. You must stop and go and meet them there, or their military, or security men. But here you will see our police officer, stop, stop, stop. Somebody will find it difficult to even stop for the policeman to check on him. So we must allow the system to work. Whoever breach or go against the law, what happens to him? Must be punished. People are being killed here and there. A governor of a state cannot even direct the police commissioner to go and do something unless he got directive from the national headquarters. So the effectiveness of the amendment must be seen to be effective by all of us obeying what is supposed to be done. So I think...
Well, I'm sorry, I'm still going back to this Not Too Young to Run Act, because it was a landmark, yes, for Nigerian youth in terms of political participation. And then, elections have come and gone, and the youths are still crying. Professor Ezilo, you want to weigh in on this?
Correct about implementation. Even it passed outside the constitutional amendment. People were very happy about that bill passing. But then actualization, and that reminds us about the gulf, or sometimes the disparity between law in the books, de jure, and law in action. But again, it is for not just for political parties, because sometimes we push so hard to get a bill passed into law. And then after that, you see, people become fragmented. There is not that focus again for actual implementation of that law. And that is where the problem is. And you find that even with the political parties, I'll tell you, constitutional amendment and even in legislative work and amendment has become very politicized. Even with the politics of it, that you can amend like local government autonomy, which ordinarily you would think that people will pass in the State House of Assembly, and they will reject it. Yeah. Is it not political? Because the way, like you mentioned, the rigidity of even the amendment that required 2/3 of all the states of the federation, but you would think that this should be popular. And the entire Nigerians are saying, let the local government be autonomous. And people say, let the judiciary be, have actual independence. Let's separate the office of the Attorney General from the Minister of Justice. And you see that, and then it wouldn't go. It depends on disparate interests of people, of individuals who have political powers, who have also personalized those political powers, who think about self all the time. And that's what we've seen in not just making laws, but also in giving assent to those laws. Because the 2012 amendment will have been a watershed in the history of constitutional amendment in this country, and will have put a big stop, because that will have required even the people of Nigeria to be able to really participate actually in those amendments. That would have been the last time a president would give assent to any constitutional amendment. It would have been taken to the people, for people to vote for it. And we don't have that, yet. And that's part of the problem, and a whole lot of politics that we thought, and we got it wrong, because since this constitution was handed down by the military, one would have thought that people who have fought so hard for democracy, immediately at the onset of that democracy in 1999, could have taken immediate action to strengthen and tie all loose ends and ensure that democratic culture is built, that rule of law, that constitution is. But no, because we are so selfish. Nigerians think self. An average political person thinks self. And they think self and their survival and their sustenance in the office and their, they will become the power. And that power personalization doesn't allow for institution building, doesn't allow for the kind of effectiveness we want to see with the some law. And some, mind you also, it was about election time. So they will pass that law to maybe the agitations of youth. You quieten them, then you've given them something, then they are happy. And then for the youth themselves, what extent are you pushing to make sure these laws are given meaning to. Yes, they will also tell you nobody stops them from voting. At least the age prescription has been brought down and they can run for many of offices. But we know the reality and, why they can't succeed.
Thank you, Professor Zilo. You have said some of the things I alluded to earlier, and I'm talking about, in part, rigidity of the process for those that are realistic that you can achieve, and some are just plain unrealistic. For instance, what will change if you say in the last 1, 2, 3 amendments that you've talked about things like they are recurring, local government autonomy, you talk about judicial autonomy and all the likes. Why don't they succeed? Because you need the states to support so that they can pass. Now, Honorable Benila, what will change to make some of these things pass? I give you an instance. State policing appears to be on the front burner at this time. When the House of Representatives organized the dialogue recently, I'm not sure that there was a single governor in that dialogue, not one. I'm not sure if there's any who was there or represented at all. So does that show support for it? The police said Nigeria wasn't ready, even though they later, withdrew the statement, but they have said it. That's what it is. Nigeria is not ready from the police perspective, so they are also not in support. How do you intend to get this passed?
Well, let me just say first, let's go to the issue of the rigidity. The rigidity for amending the Constitution is there for a reason, and it's done that way so that it's not passed like any ordinary bill. For an ordinary bill, you just need a simple majority. But to pass something as important and as crucial to the country as a Constitution, definitely the 2/3, I think that means it's an overwhelming majority. In terms of creation of states and, amending the Constitution on the issue of creation of states and boundaries and so on, it's 4/5, which is even more difficult. So that's why you hardly see anybody going there. Now, the issue of 2/3 is realizable where there's political will. It has been done, and it's possible. I just want to say that the issue of state police is something all Nigerians, most Nigerians rather, are in support of. And I believe most governors, if not all, are in support of it too. The fact that they were not at that dialogue doesn't mean they won't host it to their states, because I'm sure they're waiting for it to come to their states.
And it was such a coincidence that all of them...
It will be to their advantage. So I'm sure in their states, when it comes to their states, they will be the one hosting most of these, the processes. And I'm sure, yes, they will show, they will show their support at the state level. I think it's crucial that as a nation, there's a national consensus on issues. We all agree that without state police, for instance, some of us in some areas, in the North Central, we're getting killed by the day. And the federal government cannot come from Abuja and deploy enough police. And like my colleague has said, the governor doesn't have control over the security in his state. So how are we going to go over this? We need state police for community policing and for our own security. The life of every Nigerian is important and is guaranteed by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The life is the responsibility of the states to protect the lives and properties of every citizen. And right now, that isn't being done. So we need to employ a new strategy, and that would be through state policing. So I'm almost very sure that unless something happens, I believe that we'll see a lot of changes this time. I have a lot of confidence in the process.
You guys are very concerned, I'm sorry to say, concerned about the involvement of the judiciary in all of this. What do you think can be inserted into the Constitution or taken out that will make this possible? Less involvement of the judiciary. Like I said earlier, if there is a dispute, you don't trust INEC, INEC delivers, its verdict, and you say, no, I don't agree. There's only one way to go, you go to the court. So how do you think you can improve the integrity of the process and get the courts less involved? What is there to insert, for instance?
Well, first I want to say there's no way you can get the courts less involved, because the Constitution has given them that role to settle disputes. But they're supposed to do it, there's a rule of law, and they took an oath, like I said, to...
Morality.
Yes. No, not just morality. They took an oath. Well, a lot of it is morality. They took an oath to make their rulings in consonance with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Every public officer takes an oath that whatever decisions or actions they take will be in line with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, I believe that because of what has been happening in certain courts, especially the lower courts, there should be a right to judicial review, because even in America, the Supreme Court has the right to judicial review. So I think it's very important that in election petitions, there's a right to judicial review by the Supreme Court. Okay. Otherwise, we may not go very far. We will keep, other Nigerians will be victims of what we have been victims of. We've been victims of injustice, and many other Nigerians will keep suffering this. You talked about the you're not too young to run bill. And unfortunately, most of those affected in Plateau State, 24 constituencies, most of them were young people who had contested for the first time. And after less than 6 months in office, about 4 to 5 months, they were unceremoniously removed from office because of judicial manipulation. So, you know, regardless of who is on the ballot, I don't think it's about party politics. It's just about some unfortunate incident that happened. There must be discipline in the executive, in the judiciary, and in the legislature. You know, so the issue of morality comes in, but there has to be some disciplinary measures so that it will forestall the future. So young people will get a fair share of what they deserve.
You know, I think Nigerians would have a lot of confidence in the whole amendment process when they feel, when there's an inclusion and they feel that, yes, they are seeing the impact of the amendments. The immediate past president, just before he left, assented to, I think, about 68 items. It was 68, yeah. 68 items.
For the approval?
Yes.
68.
Yes, for the amendment. And they included so many, items and all that. Now we are looking at the 10th Assembly will preside over another constitution amendment. Professor Isilu, please, can you take us through what are the proposed areas for amendment?
I think they've identified a lot of areas, of which issues around devolution of power is one, state police, local government, judiciary, gender, they are all part of in fact, almost similar to what has happened. And they've called actually for memoranda. And people have, I think for the House of Reps, they have already closed. And then for the Senate, it's till the end of May. And the public, I heard last time, the Deputy Speaker, who is leading, the Right Honorable Benjamin Kalu, they've already received, I heard even over 1 million, thousands already of memoranda. So how they sift through that and get out the critical issues will be important. But Nigerians are participating, they are responding, and they hope that beyond zonal public hearings, they could take it down to their state. And besides, anyway, every local government, every constituency, House of Reps, Senate, have their constituency, and they could actually consult their people. It's just that sometimes it's not effective and people are not engaging with their people at the grassroots to make sure that what is happening at the center is also what they want. But the most interesting one to watch out for, again, will be this local government coming up again. Is it going to be either you say, let there be 2 tiers of government, in which case you have just federal and state, and remove the number of local government in the constitution? Or will you now have it, because it's all a bit amorphous, or will you have it at a complete 3 tiers, where even the election at that level will also be, determined and run? Because the way it is at this, control of the state governors, but at the same time, when it comes to resources, they get also resources, and then they have local government and state account. And there are models to look at, and we know even from those countries that run federalism, and federalism must also be physical federalism. For me, the devolution of power, it is so crucial, and separation of powers, is also very important to make sure the one on judiciary is really long overdue. The independence of judiciary must be guaranteed. The impartiality, the appointment process must be sure that one that will throw up the best of, our first 11 and people with integrity, that will be there, because of course Nigerians are unhappy. Perception is everything, even though sometimes it is not, the corruption they allude to is not as bad as the public things, because of these perceptions, we need now more than ever to reassert the independence of judiciary, to ensure that persons of highest integrity are appointed, to ensure that the appointment process is transparent and is inclusive, and that the public participate in that.
How can the public participate? Because for the public to participate, for the whole of Nigerians, even where we copied our constitution from, there normally would be a referendum.
Yes.
Why are we not having...
Doing that referendum?
Yes, doing a referendum, Honorable.
Well, let me coming from what she said concerning the local government and what the president did before his exit. I'm coming from the State House of Assembly. The issue of local government autonomy came up. The government then delayed the passage till few days to his exit, and now give the ruling party go ahead for them to agree that we should pass the local government autonomy into law. Now, coming to the center here, the president, I don't know what happened, but truly, it was through the tail end of his tenure that he passed about 48 bills, right, into law. Now, why must you wait till towards the end of your tenure and pass the burden to another person to take? These issues should be addressed while you are in power, so that it will go through the process, and the next person that's taking it off cannot come and change it overnight. But if you are transferring a burden that you ran away from it, expecting that that person will now go into it immediately, it's always a problem. So I think that issue must be addressed properly. Coming to, sorry?
Yes, I was looking at the issue of referendum. Why are we not conducting a referendum to get the buy-in of the people in any constitutional amendment?
Well, the issue of referendum, I don't know what has been happening, but I think Goodluck Jonathan tried it, if I'm not mistaken. And if you look at in the state, any bill that is going to be passed into law, there must be a referendum. You call the critical stakeholders to come and sit down and disagree and agree on it before we pass it into law. The moment you pass into law, it's now left for the government to assent to it, or the president to assent to it. Now, if that issue is not properly addressed and people that are not deeply involved, you find that they will kick it against it. So I want to agree that the issue of referendum, people must be involved deeply, because they are the ones that have been affected by the laws. A common man is the one that is being affected. So if these issues are addressed properly, I think we'll get a headway on it. So I'm on an agreement that people must be involved in the referendum of whatever law want to pass in issue want to pass into law.
But are the people not involved though? Because each time you call for public hearings on every law, and the people get involved.
No, but
so is it taken
that's
on board?
different. No.
Yes, it's different a bit also
because
from
referendum
legislative
is a vote.
referendum where
Yes.
people vote.
Yes.
And you can see that happening in states of America where people, they have a vote to whether to vote for abortion, for vote for this type of bill. And that's really the participation of people in democracy. And that's what is desirable. And that's what will have happened, like you mentioned, under Goodluck Jonathan. The constitutional amendment then was the one in 2014 for him to sign, contained that referendum for future. If he had signed that, for future constitutional amendment, it will have been put to vote, so that Nigerians will have voted on it, and it will be conducted by NEC, and just like we vote for things, and maybe even alongside normal voting for an election, we will have that as well. And that would have been nice, because people need to participate, because they will take ownership of those laws, including for implementation. Let me ask you, there was a time we did a voice popularly with regard to constitution and people's participation, and we get to some marketplaces, you're asking people about Constitution of Nigeria. Do you know when Constitution was passed? Some will be telling you 1960 Constitution. I did this like in 2002 or 3. That's what resonates with the people. Because it was an independent constitution. It was negotiated. People who were a bit literate were aware of it. So we need to make sure that the common men and women participate in the process of lawmaking. Yes, that's why they have representatives. But we know that constituency engagement or citizency engagement has not taken root in Nigeria.
What are the
way it should be.
guarantees? What are the guarantees? If we conduct every election that is conducted in this country leads all the other people who didn't win to court. So what is the guarantee that if you conduct a referendum, it will be accepted? And it will not be manipulated?
No. It goes with education.
Yes.
Whatever the result, because it's about sensitization. Yet, you know, the level of ignorance and the lack of, you know, education. People are not, the majority of them just mind, people are not literate. So maybe the understanding may be different. But if these are explained and people go out to vote and they know they are voting for either state police or not, I'm telling you, Nigerians will participate. People understand, even in local languages, they will know whether they want it or not. But the issue is that at the end of the day, if you take it also, politics and influence of governors will come in. Definitely it will come in.
You know the issue of state police
definitely.
now.
Ethnicity, religion, all those our fault lines always impact on policy making in the country.
But some have argued.
Honorable Benny, Honorable Benny, the issue of state police now is, I mean, there are several divides.
Yes.
You know, the police themselves, majority of them, you know, are saying, you know,
because of self-preservation.
Professor Zino, we don't know.
Self-preservation.
No. You are the one saying that. They have not said that. They are saying, look, Nigeria is not ready. On the other divide, you know, some people are saying, so with the issue of state police, don't you think that there will be need for a referendum? And why is there any constitutional provision that is preventing, you know, a referendum from being conducted during amendment?
Let me just say this. The reason why you have representatives is because they speak on behalf of the people.
Yeah. But
a referendum, just like you've said, is a very cumbersome process. And so we do not encourage a referendum unless it's in cases such as creation of states or something very key. Because just like you said, how are you going to go around the whole country? Issues of politics will come in. It makes it more cumbersome. That is why you have elected representatives. So your representative will now vote for or against state police. And whatever the issues are discussed with your representative is to speak on behalf of the thousands or millions of constituents that voted for him. And so the representative at this period is to go back to the constituency, consult with the constituency on these amendments, get the position of the constituency, and then when it comes, it will be contained in the report when it comes to voting. I mean, the representative will submit a report from the public hearings held in the constituency. The 360 constituencies are supposed to hold public hearings, but a lot of times now they make it zonal hearings. So at the various zonal levels, you make your voice heard. And you say, look, we want, and this what? Even in the last assembly, the zonal hearing was held in Jos. People from Nasarawa, from Benue, you were in the House of Assembly then, and they all came and said, this is what we want, and we took note of it. And we want so-so amendment on so-so matter. We want so-so. The people were there, and the representatives were there. The traditional rulers sent representatives, religious leaders, government officials, women groups, the various groups were there and represented. So the public hearings are a form of a referendum. It's supposed to make it less cumbersome. So once you go through that public hearing, whatever comes out of the public hearing is what the National Assembly will work on and then bring it to votes. And so present it for votes. And so hopefully the issue of state police will be voted for.
Let me. Most of the times, these decisions are being influenced by the government in power.
Yes,
so if
it doesn't matter if it's a referendum or it's a public hearing.
So those are issues that need to be addressed. A referendum should be the reflection of what the people want, not what the government in power wants. So those issues must be addressed so that people must be well represented. Yes, I am representing a constituency. At times, it's not what my constituency wants that I will say. It's what the government, or my government that is in power then, will influence my decision at that point. So what do we do to get it right? Influence must be taken away from whatever decision we will take. The issue of party politics too, this thing will affect our party, will affect this, will affect that, comes to play into whatever decision we take then. So my issue is interference must be removed out of whatever referendum we have.
And we've even seen a situation where people have come out to disown their own representative.
Of course. There's a lot
they want.
There's a lot to talk about.
Constituency accountability. Because your people cannot be saying they want this and then you will be going to say
but that's the truth.
So, in other places, in fact, I've done study tours of some parliament, including U.S. Congress. If you meet some of them, they will tell you, I vote based on what my legislative staff advise, because they will have taken the temperature, they will have taken audit from their constituency to know what the constituency want. Otherwise, it will cost them. It's very costly for you to go, and obviously, I agree, but we have to start building that democratic culture. Yes.
Indeed.
You know, we can't just say things will continue the way it is. The people and the electorate should wield the final accountability stake.
I agree with you, but we need to work out modalities, how this is going to work. There's a lot to talk about, but we'll continue after this break. Please don't go away.
Welcome back, and you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We're discussing Constitution amendment and, of course, the process and all of that. And we have all our guests right here in the studio. Just before we went on break, of course, we were talking about, the possibility of involving a referendum in the whole process, and of course everyone has shared their views. And I'm asking again. Let me come back to Professor Ezilu. Honorable Benila talked about representatives, people, legislators being the people's representatives and the mouthpiece. Yeah. As far as constitutional amendment is concerned, and I'm like, okay. A particular state in this country turned down, the proposition for local government autonomy. Now, is that the people's will?
Definitely not. We know what moves people: stomach infrastructure and self-preservation. So where people, they think, but it's most unfortunate. It's actually not a laughing matter, because ordinarily everything should be constituency driven, and it's to avoid the cumbersome of going to the people each time to say what is their view or take referendum, that you have representative. And actually the legislative arm of the government is a bridge between the government and the people. So you will expect them to be the first buffer in terms of protecting the interests of the people, because they are the ones that work with their constituency and know where it pinches them and how any particular law will affect them. But does it happen? Because you look at some of the laws that come and, Nigerians are screaming and saying, why should I pay this? And you now say, have the legislative looked at this and think in best interest of their people? The answer will be definitely no, because it's a resounding no. If they do, they will interrogate some of the laws. They will see the ones that will become burdensome for the government, or even the one in oversight that the government also may not be able to implement, or that will bring hardship to the people, or may even make this law, reauthorization of that law in a few years' time, including also postponing enforcement in 1 year time. It's only in Nigeria you see some of the laws, except where it's necessary because of exigency of time. There are certain laws you don't make and say, in 2 weeks' time, the law is passed today. 2 weeks, people are to pay this. I mean, it shouldn't happen. But this is where we are. And unfortunately, I think the legislative arm, and this is because of undue influence of the executive power, which is so powerful, that they have not, kind of developed, as they should be. And we are Nigerians. That's why at times you see they get the heat from Nigerians, because Nigerians are expecting them to really speak on their behalf, to be truly their representative. But I think there is a solution to that. If people, and that's where everything comes back to credible election, process. If a legislature is not effective and is not representing you and your interests, then in the next periodic election, you get the person out. The report card will speak for itself. The scorecard will speak for it. There are those who are there. We know, Right Honorable Benny, like how effective she was there. There is nobody from Plateau State who will not be proud that she effectively represented them. And that's why they keep reaffirming, her and re-electing her. And you can see, even I knew her, is not from my state, from the work she was doing. And we got involved, and she's always accessible, whether as a human rights committee chair, whether it's for all the other positions position she had held, within her time and that's what it should be. But for some people, they may not have that, capacity, that reach, and they will not even want to consult their people. And I think, first of all, they must all have very effective constituency offices. And they must go periodically back to those constituency offices, because some of them don't have, and they have it in town. You can't be in a representing local government and you have your constituency office in a city. Because if you can't go back to those people, then there is a problem. And that's why I think the convergence, or there is preponderance of support for even state police. That where you're having also huge, powerful voices of gladiators is also amongst political elite. Some will say, oh, if you have it, we can't go back to our state. The governors might just even order us, even their deportation or expulsion, or not being able to come. But I think people should not even be afraid of that. You know what? I said we have not been able to use law effectively, because if you have a law that stipulates a model, even for that state police, it shouldn't be in one fell swoop. There should be benchmarks, guidelines, and any state meeting up these guidelines, then you can have your state police. You must have a law that totally will comply even with the independence of whoever is going to be the state commissioner of police. Tenured office, work in this way, professionals, recruitment spelled out. You will find that the hands of governors are tied. The funding, how it has to be direct, consolidated without any. Once you set that up, hands of governors are tied. And anybody that abuses it, even as a governor, it might be also a distance for waiver of your immunity and calling for action for federal interference. We haven't used innovative ways and our laws to tighten this. Put me on that draft committee. I will draft a law that no state governor will violate and get away with it. As far as state police is concerned.
We seem to have most of the issues that have been raised so far appear to be governance issues, purely governance issues.
Yeah,
and then some have pushed for us to revert to the parliamentary system of government. And when people said, oh, we've tried it before, I said, no, it doesn't have to be the British style, the Canadian style. These are different styles.
It can be a hybrid.
And by the way, we can have a tailor-made parliamentary system of government suitable for us and our peculiarities. What do you say to that, Honorable Benila?
Do the people even understand what that means? The people that are going to...
Because that would mean that, whoever leads government will be there in parliament answering to his or her policies and, be able to tag people along and then the question time and all of those. So how does that work?
Well, thank you very much. I want to say that the American presidential system seeks to have, the Senate, 2 houses of assembly, and there's a reason for that. The reason is because it's believed that the House of Reps will have the broader representation of the people. And then the Senate, we have 3 per state. Representation is very important. And if we are clearly spelling out that there are 3 arms of government, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, and we want them to perform their functions very effectively, I think mixing up the functions of a parliamentary system and an executive in one house may be a little bit too much. Because being a parliamentarian and at the same time being in the executive, I don't think it will make that parliamentarian a very effective executive. I think it's better the parliament holds the executive accountable to their actions. Every action they take. Now, I think that's where Nigerians are sort of clamoring for a new system. I think that's the problem we have with the country. When the systems don't work, we should go back and make it work and not seek to switch to another system. The presidential system, to me, by far remains the most desirable for this nation because of the reasons I've outlined.
But they say it's expensive.
It's expensive because, number one, look at the population.
It hasn't solved all our problems.
It's because we are not, just like everybody here has alluded to, we are not implementing it the way it should be. The laws, the judges are ruling not according to the law. The legislators are being influenced by the governors, so to say, or maybe whoever is at the top, depending, and or party politics. And then, you know, so we have to be true to ourselves. It's a matter of morality, ethics, and good conscience. Nigeria claims to be the most religious country in the world, both Christians and Muslims. But how is that impacting our country? I think it is left for us as Nigerians to set and raise a new standard and a new bar. And we must hold people accountable. There's not enough accountability. Judges are not held accountable. The executive, governors, commissioners, local government chairmen, legislators, everybody who has public office should be held accountable. And there has to be a system of check and balance. So why the American presidential system is working and in other countries is because of accountability. Look at President Trump. President Trump is in court today. Can that happen in Nigeria? A former president?
His son as well.
Exactly, and his son. So, because nobody is above the rule of law. And when they say nobody is above the rule of law, absolutely nobody.
Not to be present.
Yes. And I remember when I lived in America, I had so many American friends. And sometimes you invite them to Nigeria and they come, and I remember on one occasion, one of them was asked to go into, one of them wanted to go into a certain business, and he was told he had to drop some money before his papers come out. He said he's American. He can't do that. He's not allowed to bribe anybody anywhere in the world. See, he's not in America, he's in Nigeria. And in Nigeria, that's what people do. Before you get papers processed, they'll say, drop something for the person. He left.
And companies have been punished in
Europe
for
yes.
bribing.
So this is it's an issue of conscience and morality. Plays a key role.
Thank you, Honorable Benny. You know, bringing in morality and accountability. Honorable Peter, again, it was late, and may God bless his soul, former President Yar'Adua and PMB, that's President Muhammadu Buhari, that probably had the guts to, you know, implement some of the amendment, constitutional amendments. The one under Jonathan, we all know what happened, you know, because of, he said, some inconsistencies and all that. And former President Olusegun Obasanjo couldn't, you know, scale through. So, yes, considering the dynamics of, you know, the proposed contents of the proposed amendments, are you optimistic that this will be, you know, it will run through? Because the legislator said they will do this in 24 months. Do you see this, you know, being realized under this government?
It is possible, but unless and until we avoid what they call corruption. Corruption in terms of, not in terms of money alone, but in terms of our dealings. We talk about local government autonomy that some said no. Why did they say no? Why was local government created in the first time? Is to bring the governance closer to the people. In fact, at the point, there was this issue of development areas. From the local government, there were development areas that were created to bring governance more closer to the people. But at the end of it all, what has been happening? Corruption has been the main issue, where local government chairman will sit down, only comes to the office once in a month, share what is being allocated to them, and leave. And why is the local government autonomy so hard to be implemented? The same thing, what is happening, I don't want to mention all this, but these are things that at the end, any monthly allocation, local government and say, we'll sit down and share, give the local government what they can give them, and tell them what to do with it. The local government will go and take their part, and find out that at the end of the day, nothing has been done. Now, coming to the issue of morality, as my honorable colleague have said, issues that has to do with Nigeria as it is must not be handled with kid gloves. Issues like this must be handled with all manner of sincerity. The government might want to, or the president might want to ensure that a constitutional amendment is being done. But looking at the area he's coming from, I remember just few days ago, the issue of this American security, that they said they are coming to Nigeria. the government have come out to denounce it.
Military bases.
Yeah, the government have come out to denounce it, but a lot of issues came up because they want to punish the northerners, they want to do this, but we don't look at the importance of whatever intention is being brought to. I'm not saying they should bring, I'm in agreement on that, but whatever is coming, we should look at the pros and cons of that,
merits.
And the merits and demerits, whether it's possible for us, what gains are we going to make from this? So I strongly believe that the government, if it wants to do it, they will definitely do it. And I believe, by the grace of God, if President Tinubu means well for Nigerians, he should be able to get it right this time around.
Some of the bills proposed for amendment are usually, I don't know, Honorable Benila, you correct me if I'm wrong, are usually private, yes, sponsored bill, and usually sponsored by legislators themselves, and that gives rise to perceptions that legislators too are culprit in the whole of this thing. They tend to take on what will tilt in their interest and all that. And you raised an issue about the issue of the gender, because it didn't favor them, so that that issue was shut down. How are we sure that, again, some issues like gender rights and all that will see the light of day?
Well, legislators reflect, they arise from whatever actions they take. Normally is from societal attitudes or norms. They are part of the Nigerian society.
But they sponsor the bills for amendments.
Yes, that is their role.
Except if it's an executive bill.
Yeah, that is the role of a legislator.
Yes.
Because through that bill, they're trying to, portray this is what my constituents want to get done. So that's their role. I think the issue here is what you said. How do we get some very significant bills passed, like the gender bill? I think there's a lack of understanding. There's a disconnect between Nigerian men and the women. That's where there's a root cause. That's true. Nigerian men feel threatened by women in politics, and for all these reasons. And so when they go to the legislature, it's the same attitude. So there has to be an understanding that men and women must coexist together.
But there are he for she men who also supported.
Oh, definitely.
But yes, but they're not enough. And so we need more enlightenment and education. And these special seats, the women are advocating for special seats, not to threaten the system that exists, but just to add one seat.
Senatorial and then some.
One seat per senatorial zone, and then maybe one for the House of Reps or so, or two. And this is because there's, like you said, non-inclusion. And it's going to be almost very difficult for women to overcome these barriers.
How will that better the life of the women? Because we have women at the National Assembly. Even
the life of the women or the life of Nigeria?
No, the life of the women, because it's women's rights.
Yeah. Of course, women, when they are involved in decision making, the number is, let's agree, the number is so insignificant that they cannot make the desired impact. Yes, as women representing a constituency, they represent both men and women, and youth and every other person in that group. But when you have a significant number, they will be able to represent the interests of women. Remember, if you give even ordinarily money to empower a woman, it trickles down, to the entire family. So it doesn't trickle in the same way when men are involved. We know some of the women that we admired even in the legislative National Assembly, people like Honorable Linda Ibazo, herself, the current minister, Neno Keje. They have really powerful, consistent women, and they were able to make influence at the House of Reps then. Nobody could push. They are not people, not easy pushover at all.
But there were also
very effective.
There were also female legislators who also
and in the Senate then we used to have them, like Senator
Prof, there were also female
Senator Chris and the rest
Sorry, yes, there were also female legislators. I just wanted to point this out, who did not believe also in the judge?
Oh,
Yes.
sure. No, definitely, because really you have to, the process of socialization is very important, which includes the family, the society, the school, and the way people think and perceive themselves. There are women who will tell you, no, I don't want to aspire. They will even justify it reading Bible or Quran, where God wants them to be is not this place. So when they're also there, we've had even women who will say, I don't support this bill on indigeneity, I don't support this bill on affirmative action. I don't think that's what women need. I think we should solve the poverty, we should look at violence, but they don't know the interconnections and how those the intersections of that.
Sorry,
unfortunately, we've run completely out of time. We've run completely out of time. I was going to even ask when we will have a bill that tends to put a stop to the frequency of switching political parties.
Oh yeah,
being
that's
PDP
an important
morning,
one
APC
as
in
well.
the night.
Yes.
But it
That's
will never come up. It will never come up because it doesn't do. Everybody exploits
it was actually part of those rejected, and I don't know for what reason. There was a bill. It was part of one sent to the past president to sign on, which will have strengthened it, because that was restricted to the parliament, also with regard to executive and some others. And I believe it's important for building a building political parties as an institution, and based on ideology. And it's a topic you can take up some other time.
It's something we'll have to do some other time.
For parliamentary system and the costing, I think, yes, it will be cheaper, but I'm really worried at a very micro level that we are not sophisticated for that type of politics.
We've been there before, so we can do it again.
And it's going to be very physical this time
all
around.
right, Professor Joyce, thank you very much. SAN, Emeritus Dean of Law, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, former Commissioner for Women Affairs and Social Development, Enugu State, and many more caps that you wear. We thank you very much. Always a pleasure having you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
Let me also thank Honorable Benny La, former member of the House of Representatives, representing Langtang North and South Federal Constituency. We thank you very much for being on the program.
Thank you.
And then finally, Honorable Peter Ibrahim Gendeng, former member representing Barkin Ladi, Riom Federal Constituency of Plateau State. It's been a pleasure having all of you, enjoy this program with us today. But that's the show. Claire?
All right. Also, let me also appreciate all our guests, and of course, to you for watching. I am Claire Adilabu Abdul Razak. The program returns same time tomorrow, same station. Bye-bye.
All right. I'm Victor Azo. See you again tomorrow.